Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Soccer Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. We have a great show for you today. We will be covering the Madrid Derby coming up this weekend. We'll also talk about United taking on Tottenham as well, which is coming up this weekend. We'll also talk about City taking on Newcastle this weekend. And then we'll do a full Premier League preview of this weekend's fixtures. And make sure you stick around towards the end of the show, where I'll be giving you my reaction to some of the top headlines going on in the soccer world. We do have to. There's a glare that's normally not there. Maybe I should adjust my camera, make it a little bit better. There you go. It's still there, but we'll fix it later. But before we start off, if you have a question during the show, we want to hear it. Your input is a big part of what makes the show successful, and we thrive on your energy and insights. Whether it's a quick comment, a thoughtful question, or an opinion, you just have to share. Don't hesitate to drop it in the chat. Now, if you want to make absolutely sure your message stands out and gets featured on the show, there's an easy way to do that. Use the super chat feature. Just click the $ at the bottom of the chat box to send in your super chat. Rely on your support to keep bringing you the sports content you love, and we really appreciate every bit of it. So go ahead, let us know what you're thinking. Hit that super chat button, and let's keep this show as interactive and exciting as possible. And if you prefer, you can also go to the gsmcpodcast.net to tip, donate, leave a comment or question there. We couldn't do what we do without your amazing support, and we're so thankful to have you as part of our community. We do have to start off with the Madrid Derby. Madrid, taking on Atletico Madrid. Every time I say Real Madrid, I always think of that a la Madrid chant. Not a Real Madrid fan by any means. Please don't accuse me of me being one. It's just something that's always been stuck in my head. But the Madrid Derby coming up this weekend's big game, obviously. Big derby. We know with derbies, form generally goes out of the window, but still these are two teams which Real Madrid entering slightly better form, just based on what you've seen from La Liga. 5 wins to 2 draws compared to 4 wins for Atletico Madrid, 3 draws. And we know what Real Madrid has been over the past few years or so. Some big storylines going on here with obviously Kylian Mbappe, him being out, suffering that thigh injury that he suffered in the last game. He's not going to be available, which will make it just a little bit more difficult for Real Madrid. Real Madrid also having to go, it's within city, but still having to, go to their away stadium at the Metropolitano. We know the atmosphere that it can be, during the Madrid Derby. Atletico Madrid took advantage of that. Actually, it was one of few Real Madrid losses that they suffered last season in that amazing campaign that they had last season. In which they won La Liga and Champions League. This is one of the few losses that they suffered, was that loss that they suffered away to Atletico Madrid in La Liga. And these are two teams that are unbeaten, but at the same time, they're still trying to keep pace with Barcelona, who find themselves at the top of La Liga, 4 points clear of everyone else, of anybody else, which is Real Madrid, the team that they're 4 points clear. And they've done it in superb fashion, going 7 of 7 wins, no drop points, 23 goals scored, 5 goals conceded. This is a Barcelona team that's been dynamite, and you don't want to fall too behind them this early on. You don't want to give them a huge gap that you don't need to give. Going back to Atletico Madrid, this season's been very, very good defensively. They've only conceded 3 goals, 2 game in their opening half of the first game. They conceded 2 to Villarreal. Since that one half of football that they played in the opening match, for the rest of their season, in 6.5 games, they've only conceded 1 goal. So they've been remarkably well defensively, very, very solid. And then they've relied on some individual moments of magic to get them results against Athletic Club and against against Athletic Club, and then their last game against Celta Vigo, you had, you defended really, really well. You stayed in it for as long as you can, and then you took advantage with some individual moments because they have quality in this team. You're looking at this team with the Griezmann. Griezmann is the one that provided that quality moment to win the game last season with a wonderful ball, or last game with the wonderful ball. You have the likes of Griezmann. You have Julian Alvarez, who was able to get some rest in midweek when they took on Celta Vigo, came on late when they were chasing the game, and he ended up scoring that goal, receiving that beautiful cross from Antonio Griezmann. We know the quality that Julian Alvarez has. He's only had 2 goals so far to start off this La Liga campaign, but there's a reason why he was brought in for the amount of money he was brought in. He has quality, he has ability, he has pace, he can do everything, a bit of everything really good. He provides flexibility too, so allows the front to be a little bit more fluid, with him and Griezmann being a little bit more fluid. And then you have that number 9 and Alex Sorlos, that proven goal scorer, someone that's done it in La Liga this past season. He had 23 goals for Villarreal last season. He had 29 goal contributions last season in La Liga, 23 goals, 6 assists total in Europa League and La Liga. He had 32 total goal contributions. So this is a dude that is productive, and so far to start off the season, he's had 3 goal involvements, 1 goal and 2 assists. But the presence is there, that presence of a striker, and I think him and Julian Alvarez and Conor Gallagher are 3 players that are going to be good signings for Atletico Madrid in the long run. And I think we're already seeing some positives from Conor Gallagher. He's played some really good football, and he had that goal a few games ago or so. We know him, the worksman-like character to him, the workaholic, but he also has the quality to play in the midfield of an Atletico Madrid team, and he gives you flexibility. You play him at the 6, he can, he will do the work. He has the work rate to do the defensive duties. You play him at the 8, that's really his strong position. That's what he, that he was brought up. And you play him as a 10. Yes, you don't get the exact, technical brilliance of a number 10, but you do get a guy that's pretty decent in tight spaces, can play a pass here and there, playing in those advanced spaces, and he also gives you a goal threat. You go back to the season where he played with Crystal Palace. He was he could, he was a guy that could get on the score sheet. He was a guy that had potential to score 8, 9, 10 goals because, he has a good shot on him. He can make those late runs into the box. So for Diego Simeone, these kind of players that are flexible is perfect for them. And they're continuing to build something in terms of, being very, very solid defensively and relying on individual moments from your quality players because they have those quality players. Now, as far as Real Madrid, we know Real Madrid are and what Real Madrid have been. They're just a well-oiled machine under Carlo Ancelotti. Brilliant quality, brilliant ability, and they have that knack of being able to get the result over the line, no matter what situation that they find themselves in. Now, this is a little bit different going away to Atletico Madrid, the derby as well, and you don't have Kylian Mbappe, which, yes, losing arguably your best player, yeah, it's a big loss, but at the same time, this is the team last season, without Mbappe, they won La Liga last season. They won Champions League last season. This is essentially the same team, minus Toni Kroos, who is a very important player for them. There's no undermining the greatness that how great he is. But, apart from that, this is, there's no excuses. That's what I'm trying to say. With Kylian Mbappe being out, Vinicius Jr. and Rodrigo, they have to get it done. And Carlo Ancelotti as well. This Real Madrid team is different in the past because this team, you got players on the bench that have quality. Brahim Diaz, Arda Güler, Endrick's came in as well. There's some quality in this bench. So Carlo Ancelotti has the flexibility, he has the flexibility in this one where he could bring in Endrick to play centrally and allow Rodrigo and Vinicius to stay on the left and right hand sides respectfully. That's one option. You could play Rodrigo through the middle, and you can bring in a natural left-footed option just to get a balance of having a left-footed attacker, whether it is Brahim Diaz or Arda Güler, or both left-footed and have a brilliant left foot. You can bring any of those 2 players and make that front three a little bit more balanced, or you could have the fluidity of what we saw from Vinicius and Rodrigo playing up front, having Bellingham right underneath them, all them sort of interchanging, and then you can bring in an extra midfielder to have more control in the game. Someone like a Luka Modric, that could be an option. Carlo Ancelotti has multiple ways to go about it, so there's no real. Obviously, they're not looking for it, but we shouldn't have much sympathy with Mbappe missing this game because this is Real Madrid and they were great before Mbappe, and they could still be great without Mbappe. And yes, this comes at a time with Mbappe scoring 5 straight La Liga goals. He was on a good form, had the confidence. He was playing really, really good football. But at the same time, for Real Madrid, there's all the excuses go out of the water. So yeah, all excuses go out of the water. I expect Atletico Madrid to continue with the back 3 formation that can switch to a back 5. I do have to say, I'm very interested. This website that I've read before the show, they were doing, expected lineups for the game, and they did not have Griezmann in the lineup, which surprised me, I do have to say. And I believe it was against Rayo Vallecano, he didn't start, and it's perceived that that the reason why he started against Celta Vigo is because Julian Alvarez was getting a rest in this one. And it's, Julian Alvarez and Griezmann, they have been interchanging a bit, and people are saying, okay, now it's time for, he was resting midweek. Julian Alvarez was to play in this one. We have seen Julian Alvarez and as well Griezmann play in the front too. What we have, Simeone has been reluctant to play that third attacker, which will probably, playing that third attacker would probably force him to take out one of the center halves and go with the traditional back 4, so you can have a third attacker in there, because I do want to see, Sorlos, Alvarez, and Griezmann, because I think that's a more attacking way to go about it, and I think you can have that strong defensive presence playing with the back 4, as long as you keep it compact and you make sure the midfielders block any pockets of spaces in between the defenders. I think you can still play a compact game playing with the back 4 and still be good, solid defensively, but have that extra attacker in there to give you something more going forward. Because I feel like Griezmann and Julian Alvarez, you don't want to, you're going up against Real Madrid. You don't want to lose the quality of Griezmann and Alvarez. You don't want to have to bench any of those. And you see Alexander Sorlos, he scored 23 goals in La Liga last season. He is a goal scorer, so you don't want to bench a guy like him. I would play all those 3, but if I would play those 3 and I would sacrifice a defender. I think you have to go with 3 attackers in this one. I think it's time that Diego Simeone starts looking into that direction, because you have 3 brilliant attackers, 3 attackers with quality, and you don't want to leave any of them on the bench. So you play with them 3, you keep that strong 3 base defensively, and you sacrifice, a center half to make up for it. And you still have that defensive nature to yourself about being compact, about defending very, very compact and very, very tight, and not allowing any pockets of spaces for players to play balls through or players to run in behind. And at the same time, you get an extra attacker out on there. That's what I would do. But who will see Diego Simeone because they have been a little bit reliant on the individual moments of quality, and they haven't had sustained pressure of attacking pressure on the opposition. So I think bringing in that extra attacker, I think it's the right time for Atletico Madrid. But we'll see. I'm very excited for this game, though. Show break here coming up. When we come back, we will do a full preview of United taking on Tottenham.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Before the break, we did the preview of the Madrid Derby. We now move on to preview Manchester United taking on Tottenham this weekend. Interesting game, very, very interesting game. Tottenham, Tottenham, they've had a struggle of the start of the season. Having a lot of good attacking play, getting in the right areas, but lacking that cutting edge in the attack to get the goal. So they've dropped a lot of points here and there, but lately, last two games, they've combined for 6 goals, showing a little bit more cutting edge in the attack, being clinical in the attack, having that midweek game against Karabakh, against 10 men, playing with 10 men for the entirety of the game, essentially, and still being able to get 3 goals on the goal sheet. Dominic Solanke scoring in a second game in a row as well, getting that just little bit of confidence that's been much needed after not a poor start for the season from him, but overall Tottenham just not being able to get in enough goals. So some slightly good signs we see from Tottenham over these past 2 games or so. With United, horrible start to the season. Horrible start to the season. 3 games from their 3 wins, 3 points from the first. From the first 3 games, only getting 3 points, only have 4 points have 7 points right now from 5 games, sitting in 11th, 1 spot ahead, or tied with Tottenham. Tottenham and Man United, same record in the Premier League. I do have to say, I think the mood in Tottenham's camp is a little bit better because they've just played much better football than Man United. The problem with Tottenham is that there's that clear problem of lacking that cutting edge in attack. Playing good overall within the 90 minutes, Tottenham, despite having 2 losses, never got dominated. They've never been dominated. In fact, if you're watching it, not looking at the score and you're just basing it on, general play from what we see, Tottenham has played better than their opposition, has played the better football. Has played the better football in every game that they've played so far this season. They've been the better team than the other team in terms of, getting in good attacking positions, being lively, getting numbers forward, having control of the game, but they lack that cutting edge in attack, and then defensively it leaves you vulnerable when you're not taking advantage of those opportunities because it only takes one in ball behind. With the way Tottenham play, the way Tottenham are set up under Postecoglou, it only takes 1 ball in behind and they can get a goal, against the run of play like that, and it makes it difficult, and it makes it hard to watch as a fan. It makes it hard to watch as a manager. But the positives of Tottenham is we're seeing a little bit of steady progression over the last 2 games, getting 6 goals in those 3 against Brentford and then 3 against Karabakh. As far as Manchester United, horrible start to the season. 3 points in the first 3 games. They had a decent win against Southampton, and then they went on to draw against Crystal Palace. Then they had that horrible result this past midweek going up against Twente, where they drew 1-1 at Old Trafford. It's just been mediocre. It's been pathetic. In Manchester United, there's nothing to hang your hat on. At least with Tottenham, they're playing good football. They're just not taking advantage. in the what is there to say about Manchester United? They've been so poor. They've been so average, and it's hard to watch, and just the whole mood around the club is so dark. It's just darkness when you think about Manchester United, and there's no positivity coming out of there. And it's real sad because you get a no, it's not sad actually. Really, it's not sad at all. But you get a decent result against. You get a decent result when you take on Southampton, and you think that's gonna carry over into that Crystal Palace game, and then you drop that dud and you draw to Crystal Palace, and Crystal Palace is not a bad team. But by the way, Eze was a pinky toe away from getting that victory there, which really would put Manchester United in a rough position right now entering this game. But it is what it is. Obviously, I talked about the issues with Manchester United. Erik ten Hag, the pressure keeps growing day by day now with him. They got that win over Southampton. It was sort of cool things for a moment. But the moment that Europa League game happened, the pressure is starting to rile up again. United find themselves at home. They're not in the position that they have to win this game. And as far as Tottenham want to build something now. They had that mediocre start to the season, or pretty poor start from their for Tottenham standards, even though they're quite low when you compare them to the other big teams. But pretty bad start to the season. They want to build steady progression, and now they want to start building consistency, and now they want to build on the basis of what they've done in their last 2 games. So for Tottenham, the thing is, we know that they're we know what the football they're gonna play. Can they continue the cutting edge that we've seen from them in the last 2 games, and continue that consistency and go into United? Because look, I do have to say, Tottenham will go into United and they're gonna control the game. They're gonna be the more progressive team. They're gonna be the protagonist in the game. They're gonna take it to United. They're gonna press up high. They're gonna play a really high line, and they're gonna get opportunities going forward, because that's what we've seen. But can they create enough of those clear-cut opportunities? Can they be clinical when the opportunities come? Can they lack that cutting edge to be able to take advantage of the moments when you find yourself in good positions? Can they make that right run? Can they play that right ball? Can they get something lucky as well? Maybe a potential deflection or a rebound or something that can sort of help them, find the breakthrough. So, take advantage of a set piece. Because for me, they're going to be the team that's going to go about it. They're going to be the team that's going to control the game and be the more progressive team. As far as Manchester United, you have to be defensively very, very solid. You got to make sure you close up any of those spaces that Tottenham might have when they're attacking. You want to make it difficult for them. You don't want to make any defensive mistake with a team with Tottenham that lacks that little bit of cutting edge. So far this season, you don't want to give them anything easy. Make it difficult to break down the defense. For United defensively, they have to make it difficult for Tottenham. They gotta close the pockets. They gotta close the spaces. And when they win the ball back, they gotta attack with pace, with speed, and they gotta do it with one ball, with Bruno Fernandes playing that long ball behind. Because the way Tottenham play, and they're not, just because they're going to Old Trafford, they're not going to change their way. They're going to play really, really high up. Their players, the center halves, will probably be lined up at the halfway line, split out. You got pace of Alejandro Garnacho, of Marcus Rashford, potentially Rasmus Højlund. We know him. He's set to be, this is the game that he could make his first start for United, because we know the pace can be very, very important, running in behind Xerxes. If it is Xerxes, again, Xerxes is not exactly slow. You get a little bit of pace with him playing up top as well. But you want to take advantage of the space that you have in behind, because United could be a good team on the counterattack. Marcus Rashford as well. They have the ability. They have players with pace in the attack, with ability. Can Bruno Fernandes, whoever's playing alongside Bruno, whether it is whether it is an Eriksen or a Casemiro, or I sincerely doubt it'll be Casemiro. It'll probably be Ericsson and Mainu. Can those players find God? I would go in this game. I would go with Garnacho, Højlund, and Rashford. You want all the pace that you can get going up against the high line, because Manchester United, they're not going to be able to take the game to Tottenham. They're not good enough. Tottenham was able to control the game for a lot of periods against Arsenal. If they're able to control periods in the game against Arsenal, they will dominate this game against Man United, even if it's at Old Trafford. You're not going to be in there. Man United, they're not going to be able to control the ball, but they will be able to be very electric, and they have the ability to be very electric and very devastating on the counter. So go in with that philosophy if you have to, whatever it takes to get a result. And yes, are we saying United are a counter-attack team now? Is that really what Man United find themselves at? Absolutely. They're not. This is not a good team in Manchester United. This is a pathetic team, an average team. Individually, you might say the players are, decent, maybe playing better. Maybe individually they're better than what the team is producing. But at the end of the day, they're not producing. So you have to go in with the approach to, that gives you the best opportunity. And for me, you go in with that. As far as Tottenham as well, they're going to be, it looks like I heard something going on with Son Heung-min, and that the fact that, he might not be available. He's in a race to recover from the injury. Look, he's a quality player, obviously, who is very, very important. And yeah, he will be a big loss for Tottenham, because we know already how they like cutting edge. You lose your, one of the few world-class players, the only world-class player at the club. Obviously that's a big, big loss. And we'll see how Anja Postecoglou adapts. Show break here coming up. When we come back, we will preview Manchester City taking on Newcastle.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Before the break, we did a full preview of United taking on Tottenham. We move on to preview Manchester City taking on Newcastle. Another big game coming up this weekend. Manchester City taking on Newcastle. We know Newcastle last season had a little bit of a disappointing season, suffering a lot of injuries, having Tonali out on a betting scandal, also having to adapt with playing with Champions League football. Didn't have the best of seasons last season. Newcastle did, I believe, they finished 7th. They dropped down to 7th after finishing in the top 4 the year before. Now they're wanting to, now they're not playing European football. They're wanting to get back into those top 4 position. Newcastle is had a, decent start in the season. Was 3 wins and a draw. I do have to say, watching those wins, though, they weren't exactly the most convincing. Against Southampton, yes, they played with a red card for a majority of the game. But, Southampton was, the more progressive team. Obviously, the 10 men, completely changed it. But this is a Southampton team that's yet to get a point, or not a point, but yet to yet to win a game in in this in this year's Premier League, and they find themselves tied at the bottom with 1 draw and 4 losses. And Southampton did dominate Newcastle in that game, and yes, the red card had a big reason on why that was the case. But if you're a team like Newcastle United playing at home at St. James's Park in the opening game, even with playing with 10 men, should you be getting dominated by Southampton to that extent? And then Newcastle had that draw against Bournemouth away. Not a bad result. You beat Tottenham at St. James's Park, but you did get outplayed by Tottenham. You just won on individual moments, 2 goals that came extremely against the run of play, which there's no problem with that. But when we're watching games early in the season and when we're analyzing performances, we even if you get the results, we could still be critical of the team, because when it's this early in the season, performances tell us what we might see later on in the season. Now look, if Newcastle have this philosophy about them under Eddie Howe, in which they have a knack of getting results, even if they're not really dominating games, but they still have the knack of getting results. A good perfect example of that, Real Madrid over the past few years in the Champions League that they won, the Champions League deep runs that they've been on, being thoroughly dominated by teams in certain aspects, but still being able to find the result. That is a skill, and in my opinion, that is very impressive. And if that's how you go about it, no problem. But I don't see that with Newcastle. I feel like it's a team that survived a little bit so far earlier this season, and it was exposed against Fulham when they lost 3-1, and they really got outplayed, and they really, it could have been worse. In my opinion, I thought Newcastle, defensively Newcastle looked very, very fragile. They didn't create much. I think Bruno Guimaraes has been a shell of himself as well. Harvey Barnes, the only times that they look threatening so far this season is some moment of magic from Harvey Barnes. They don't look like scoring. They're defensively, yes, they've suffered injuries, but they defensively look fragile. Adama Traore was going at Lloyd Kelly for fun. It's just, I'm concerned for Newcastle in this season, and I thought they could get back to similar levels to what we saw from them in the 2022-2023 season, and we still can. We still might be able to get back to that, because a lot of the players that was involved in that team is still here right now in Newcastle. But the issue is they're not performing the same. And yeah, I thought Tonali also coming in, he's gonna be a big impact. He made that big money move. He's slowly getting back to form as well. I know it's going to be a little bit of time with the amount of football that he missed. Sometimes it's not easy to really snap back just like that. And there's still quality in there. Anthony Gordon, I think, is a really, really good player. Joe Wellington, Guimaraes, we know he can be a good player. We know what Alexander Isak can be. I like Jacob Murphy. I think Tino Livramento is a brilliant right back that doesn't get talked about. Byrne, Schär, I think those are 2 solid defenders as well. Tonali, if he can get back to his top level, we know what he can be. He was an important part of AC Milan's team that reached the semi-final. Harvey Barnes, he has that moment of magic in him. We've seen that this season. He's been one of the few shining lights to Newcastle so far at the start of the season. For Eddie Howe, I think it's important for Eddie Howe to try to get back to how they were having success in the 2022-2023 season. Try to replicate it any way you know how. And by the way, they're playing Manchester City. Newcastle played Manchester City really, really well that season. I believe they drew at St. James's Park. It was a draw. I forgot what happened when they went to City. But they played them really, really well, Newcastle did. And they were willing to go at them. So, I think, this could be a turning a turning around moment for Newcastle. I feel like this, if they can go into Etihad, or not Etihad, if they can defend the St. James's Park, and play well, it doesn't necessarily have to be get a win, because beating this Manchester City team is very, very difficult. They've not lost a game so far this season. 4 wins, draw, and they have Erling Haaland that scored 10 goals in 5 games. But at the same time, if you can play good football, play very, very good football, and maybe get a point, it could be a confidence boost for Newcastle United going forward, and allow them to gain a little bit of that confidence and belief that they had from that Champions League, from that team that reached the Champions League. Get a little of that confidence back, and getting a good performance against Newcastle could help, or against Manchester City could help. Another key for them is being able to limit Erling Haaland in the space that he, any opportunities he has to run in behind, any pockets of spaces that he could take advantage of to find, spaces to get a shot off. You want to limit him, and you want to increase the defensive intensity with Fabian Schär and Dan Burn. You want to increase the defensive intensity when they're around Erling Haaland, because a dude that had 10 goals in 5 games should earn your massive respect, and you should do everything you can to not allow him a sliver of an opportunity. Obviously, that's easier said than done with a player like Erling Haaland and with the players around him that can create for him. But, that's important. As far as Manchester City, I can't sit here and give you a preview on what City need to do against Newcastle, the keys to the game, because, Manchester City, they just need to be Manchester City. I don't know necessarily if it will be a big factor in this game. I do think this Newcastle team is a little bit more pragmatic than in the past, and a little bit more relying on individual moments. But for City going away to Newcastle, you gotta look. You cannot move the ball as slowly as you did in that second half against Arsenal. You have to move the ball quicker. You need players making runs and trying to draw center halves out of position, and opening up space for other teammates to run in behind. You need to have good movement, because if they move the ball as slowly as they did against Arsenal, and they look as stagnant and as lackadaisical as they looked in that second half against Arsenal, then this could be a very, very harsh reality for them going away to St. James's Park, which could be a difficult place to play at. So for the key for City is, if you find yourself in a period where you're dominating possession and Newcastle have a lot of men behind the ball, be patient. That doesn't mean move the ball slowly like what we see. Move the ball quicker, but be patient with your approach and take some risks while you're at it. Put in a cross once in a while for Erling Haaland. If there is the space, play the long ball to allow Erling Haaland to run in behind. Take a little bit of risk. If Newcastle are, sitting in and putting a lot of men behind the box and playing really, really tight, then, play those intricate balls, those cute and clever balls, and, in tight pockets. Have key movements that can try to draw players out of position and try to take advantage of those players getting drawn out. Be more clever in the approach and move the ball quicker. That's the only real key to the game I have for City. As far as Manchester City, just continue to be Manchester City and continue to be the best team in the league and one of the best teams in history. So, yeah, I'm very excited for this upcoming game. Show break here coming up. When we come back, we will do a full Premier League preview of this weekend's fixtures, besides the ones that we've already discussed.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Before the break, we discussed we did a preview of City taking on Newcastle. We'll now do a full Premier League preview of this weekend's fixtures. Obviously, we talked about City taking on Newcastle and Man United taking on Tottenham, so we'll ignore those games. But there's plenty of other games to talk about in this weekend's campaign. So let's start off with Liverpool. Yeah, let's start off with Liverpool taking on Wolverhampton. Liverpool, this is a team that's won, 5 out of their first 6 Premier League games. They find themselves 5 wins and 1 loss so far this season. That 1 loss coming against Newcastle, where they got done, against Nottingham Forest, where they got done at Anfield with a late goal coming from Callum Hudson-Odoi because of real lack of cutting edge in the attack. Luis Diaz, he's been very, very important for them as well. Luis Diaz, Jota, Mohamed Salah being the preferred front three for Arne Slot, and him sticking with that front three. He gave an opportunity for Nunez in the last game to allow him to gain a little bit of confidence, because that's a player that you want to reap the benefits of going forward. And Nunez came out and he scored that special goal, and he had that celebration where you could see the pressure lift off from his shoulders. Now the problem with that and why, if I'm Arne Slot, I'm hesitant to give him another opportunity in Nunez, he doesn't have that real consistency. He can have this moment of magic, but next game he can miss 2 clear-cut opportunities. Just lacks that, or hasn't been clinical since he's been in Liverpool. And look, maybe, for Arne Slot, you want to continue to build, Darwin Nunez confidence. So maybe you play him another game, see what he can give you here against Wolves. But again, at the same time, you're battling for something. You have a player like Jota who is just much more consistent than Darwin Nunez. I do want Cody Gakpo getting more opportunities now with Arne Slot, because Cody Gakpo has real ability. And yes, you have a front three that's really, really good, but you also have 2 players in Cody Gakpo and Darwin Nunez that has quality as well. So you give an opportunity for Darwin Nunez. I feel like Cody Gakpo himself deserves that opportunity. We saw Cody Gakpo, he's still a really, really good player despite not having the strongest start to his campaign. We saw what Cody Gakpo was at the Summer's European Championship. He has some ability as well. I'd like to see him involved. As far as Wolves, they had bad losses to, or not bad loss, but they had that bad loss to Chelsea. Opening day, you lose to Arsenal, which is, which is a hard game to start off with, playing at Anfield. You also lose to Aston Villa as well. You find yourself bottom with 1 point in the first 5 games, but a lot of that has to do with difficulty of opposition. Playing Villa, Newcastle, Chelsea, and Arsenal. That's a brutal stretch there. Your only point coming from Nottingham Forest, which is not a bad point in the fact that you did it away. Now you got to take on Liverpool as well. That's really rough. I do have to say, really, really rough. And then they take on Brentford, and then they get City. So the rough fixtures. There's a rough fixtures continuous. Once that City game passes, though, then you get a set of a good set of fixtures. But for Wolves, is just trying to get whatever you can. Now, this game is at home at the Molineux, but we saw what Chelsea were able to do when they won again at the Molineux. The Wolves are just, very, very open. They're very, very open, especially when they played at the Molineux. We saw the space that they left for Chelsea, especially in that second half. But attack-wise, they have, they can create opportunities, and they play some good football. Matheus Cunha, since his past season, Matheus Cunha, he's a pretty good player, and so I do think, just based on the form, though, Liverpool, they have the edge. I have to say. We discussed United taking on Spurs already. Chelsea take on Brighton. Look, this is a Chelsea team that we're seeing some good progress from Chelsea. I do have to say, we're seeing very, very good progress from Chelsea so far up to this point in the season. Finding themselves. You just look at the Premier League table, 6 games in or 5 games in, and Chelsea are sitting 5th. Look, we couldn't say that in the past, I do have to say. And then 3 wins in 5 games, 3 wins, 1 loss, and a draw. Not the worst start for a Chelsea team, in which I came in with this, entering the season based on what I saw in preseason, some of the mistakes we made in preseason. Very pessimistic. But it's been so far a decent start. We had a really good half in that second half against Wolves. We played good football in that first half against Crystal Palace. That we were very, very clinical and professional in how we did it against West Ham. Against Bournemouth, we rode our luck a bit. We rode the storm, but then we took advantage of quality of players that we have on the bench. So far so good for Chelsea, and it's something you want to see general progression under Enzo Maresca, and so far so good. As far as Brighton are only sitting 1 point behind Chelsea. They had 2 wins and 3 draws. They haven't actually lost a game so far this campaign. They're unbeaten up to this point. And their main manager was from Fabian Horizler, and they have that unknown factor to them with entering the season because of us not really knowing Fabian Horizler. But I thought Brighton have play some really good football in certain moments, and I'm looking excited. I'm looking excited for that game. I do have to say I'll give Chelsea the slight favorites in that. Brentford taking on West Ham. This game being played at the Gitch Community Stadium. Brentford up to this point, they have 2 wins and 3 draws. West Ham has 1 win and 3 losses. No, 1 win, 1 draw, 3 losses. I think West Ham in that Chelsea game that they played this past weekend, that they had lapses of concentration defensively really, really vulnerable, and Chelsea were just clinical, but they were allowed to be clinical because of how open West Ham were in certain periods. Brentford, they had that loss to Tottenham. Tottenham finally being able to get multiple goals in the Premier for the first time in this Premier League season. With Brentford, you had losses to City, Tottenham, Liverpool. Some difficult fixtures in there. I think getting it to play against a team like West Ham at home, I will slightly favor Brentford in that one. I think Brentford, these are the sort of games that Brentford take care of, especially with the fact that it's at home. So I lean towards Brentford getting that win there. Let's look at the clock real quick. Okay, we gotta summarize these rest real quickly. Everton taking on Crystal Palace. Massive game for Everton. 1 draw, 4 losses. This is one of the easier fixtures you'll get in the league. Crystal Palace is not a difficult team. It's not the easiest team in the world. They're about a middle of the league team. But you're playing this game at Goodison. I think Everton have to take this one home. They need to start picking up 3 points. Draws are not going to do nothing for them at this period when they already have 4 losses in their first 5 games. Nottingham Forest taking on Fulham. Nottingham Forest, so far decent start to the season. Fulham as well, find them only a point behind. I think these are 2 teams that are about evenly matched. I think the table is not lying when it talks about them being right next to each other. I think the fact that this is at City Ground will give Nottingham Forest a little bit of a slight advantage there. Ipswich Town taking on Aston Villa. This is Aston Villa. They have more quality overall than Ipswich Town. I think Ipswich Town playing at home, they're going to try to, make it difficult for Aston Villa, but I just think Villa has a little bit too much quality. Bournemouth taking on Southampton on Monday. important for Southampton to start racking up points. But this game being at Vitality Stadium, with how poor Southampton has been so far to start of the season, I think Bournemouth takes care of there. And then the other title contending team, Arsenal, taking on Leicester. Arsenal playing this game at Emirates. Yes, you have a lack of creativity in that team with Martin Odegaard not being available, but Arsenal, these are just the kind of games that they take care of. What we've seen from them in recent history, they're a title contending team. They'll find a way. They just have too much quality for Leicester City at this point, and going away to Emirates and getting results is just far too difficult of a task for Leicester City, in my opinion. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we will react to some of the top soccer headlines. Before the break, we discussed the Premier League games going on this weekend. We move on to react to some of the top headlines, and we have to start off in Italy. Let's take a quick flight to Italy. Zoom, zoom, zoom. That was so cringe. AC Milan, they were, on the back of a very, very, very big win in the derby, in the Milan derby, when they defeated Inter Milan, with Pulisic getting on the score sheet there. They moved on to play I never say it correct. Lecce. I don't know how to say it. Lecce today, and they got a 3-0 win. And guess who got on the score sheet? Christian Pulisic again in the 43rd minute. 5th straight game Christian Pulisic has scored a goal. This is actually the first time in his career that he's done that. 5th straight game. Absolutely brilliant for the U.S. international, playing the best football of his career. He currently find himself top of Serie A in terms of goals scored so far in this campaign, with 4 goals, tied with Marcus Thuram and Retegui. With 4 goals. Such a brilliant player, and he got a little bit disrespected towards the end of his reign for Chelsea, and he's showing what kind of player he is. Real quality to him. Very very technically gifted, with pace, with directness as well, with also ability to play in tight spaces, has the goal scoring knack, has incredible balance and strength to be able to control the ball even who's being contacted. He's just a very, very good player, good low center of gravity. What a player he is. And for AC Milan now, on the starting off the season, with the fact that they had a pretty poor start to the season, but now they find themselves tied for top in the league. That's a really, really good, really good period that they find themselves in right now. Now, of course, they played an extra game as well, so that has a lot to do with them being, tied for first place in Serie A, with the extra game being played in. But look, they started off the season really, really poorly, but the last few games for them has been pretty smooth. being able to defeat Venezia. They had that midweek bad result in the Champions League, but then, speaking solely on Serie A, beating Inter, now getting that 3-0 win over Less. That's 9 points in the last 3 games. Also, a draw against Lazio at the Stadio Olimpico before that, which is not a bad result. We know how difficult of a team Lazio can be playing at the Olimpico. So, 10 points in the last 4 games, I think has been very, these are games that you're playing away, and you're playing against, you're playing the Milan Derby, you're playing away against Lazio, getting, 10 points in those 4 games. Good run, good set of run for them, and it's a good way to combat the bad start they had this season. Now it's important for them to get back onto the right foot in the Champions League with that opening day disappointing loss to Liverpool, and they do it now in this following midweek. Difficult game on Tuesday, going away to take on Leverkusen. We know what Leverkusen is, the team that finished unbeaten in all competitions last season besides the Europa League final, was invincible in the Bundesliga campaign. That same Leverkusen, AC Milan is going to have to take on, and you don't want to find yourself in a position where you're walking away with no points in the first 2 games. It just makes it much more difficult with the rest of the campaign to make up for lost points. I think it's important for Milan, to go in there and look, going in there and getting 3 points, trying to get 3 points is maybe a little difficult. Away to Leverkusen in a European night in Germany, Champions League night. This is going to be Leverkusen's first night in the Champions League since they won the Bundesliga. They won the Europa League last season. It's going to be difficult. But you need to get a result there because, AC Milan, they need to be in the next round of the Champions League. This is a team that has that history to them. When you think about Milan in the Champions League, what do you think of? And I think the fact that this is the team's second place in terms of wins ever in the Champions League trophies. Now, and also, in Champions League, for some reason, history and culture and tradition matter. So yes, in terms of sport right now, Bayern Leverkusen, they are the better team and they should be the favorites. But AC Milan has that history and culture to them. And that always plays a factor somehow in these games. You go back when Napoli took on AC Milan. Napoli ran away with Serie A, completely tore apart Serie A that season. Had way more points than AC Milan. Was a way better team. Milan knocked them out in the quarterfinals that year in the Champions League. That is Champions League heritage. And for some reason it matters. And I think that could be what allows Milan, an opportunity to go in there and get that result, maybe even get a win. Important for them to do that because, again, you don't want to find yourselves, with 0 points after 2 games and looking up in the standings with this 36-team league or whatever we want to call it, But let's move on from AC Milan. Borussia Dortmund, they got the win over Bochum, come from behind victory. They found themselves 2-0 down in this game, but you had 2 goals from Girassi, a penalty from Emre Can, and then to seal it off at the end, Felix Nemecha, 4-2 win over Bochum at home as well. Going down 2-0 at home is not the best place to find yourself, but being able to come back, good result. But I still think Borussia Dortmund is a team that are not at the level of a Leverkusen or a Bayern Munich for that matter, in my opinion. Yes, they had that run in the Champions League this past season, but I don't know. I don't believe in them to really be in the Bundesliga race this season. I really don't believe in them. La Liga's chief, he targets Miami hosting a game next season if La Liga can reach an agreement with the RFEF, the Royal Federation of Espanol Football, the Spanish Football Federation. Tevez, he originally tried to have a game between Barcelona and Girona at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami back in 2018, but it was opposed from the RFEF and FIFA and a lot of others. and there was a recent lawsuit actually that came out involving the Relevant Sports Group, the company that actually is actually involved with Miami Dolphins owner Stephen Ross, trying to host La Liga matches to the U.S., has actually reopened the possibility of it happening in the future. When Javier Tebas was talking about it, he said it will be played, but when it remains to be seen. We have to have an agreement with the federation in Spain. The federation is still in a significant void, and that is causing a delay for it to happen this season. We will see if it can be done next season. I do have to say I'm not a huge fan of La Liga games. Actually, so the NFL, they do have games in Mexico, in Mexico and London and Brazil and all that to grow the game. So having a La Liga game in US, maybe it's a good way to market the game in America. But there's fine lines, because look, having a La Liga game here and there in another country, okay, it's not the most convenient thing for players, managers, all that, but okay, But the problem I have with this is if this allows, if this becomes the next step to something else happening, in which I think, okay, that's a big issue. Because look, I was hearing, potential reports, not reports, but, ideas of there being like a Champions League final in the US. How stupid would that be? The champions of the game to determine the champions of Europe played in another continent? That makes no sense to me. And that's vice versa as well with any sort of competition final happening in somewhere else. It just makes no sense. Let's say theoretically, I know this is like way out of the ordinary and doesn't really make sense, but let's say you have a World Cup, right? Let's say if this was possible, why don't we host the World Cup in Mars if there's life on that planet? Let's host the World Cup on Mars to, promote the game there. That's just stupid. It's the World Cup. It's made for us here. And again, I know it's like a way weird picture, crazy, out of the worldly picture to point, and maybe this metaphor doesn't really make sense because that scenario's possible, but it just doesn't make sense. Why would you do that? So if this is like a plan to lead into more things happening, I don't like this. But if it's just this one game and it's something, one game a year or 2 games a year, I'm not the worst. There's not the worst deal in the world for me. Thank you guys, though, for tuning in to the GSMC Soccer Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show and leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. Thank you once again and have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool.